Welcome everyone to our fourth World Cup episode. This one we're focusing on qualification and the non-qualification, I guess, of certain teams.
Yeah,
There are a few big stories in there, but I think Wes, you let us get into it.
yeah. Let's get into it, Joe. So, as we know, we have mentioned in the build-up in some of the previous episodes, the FIFA World Cup this year was expanded from 32 to 48 teams,
Yep.
which of course means quick maths. There are 16 additional berths in the World Cup available. So that for me puts a little bit of an asterisk around some of the excitement surrounding some teams that qualified for the
Newly
first time and
qualified.
whatnot, because the bar has been lowered.
Yep.
There are worse teams playing in the World Cup this year than ever, pretty much.
Yes.
Um,
I think I'll kind of bring up one team later that I think would have qualified for a 32 team World Cup.
okay, no, I'm not saying that perhaps they might have,
Yeah.
but it's certainly the quality of the new teams that have joined is not particularly high. You would not expect many of them to make it outside of the group stages. There may be one notable exception
There
to
is
that.
one note.
So that is a little bit of a caveat on this whole qualification process. But I thought it's pretty interesting to look at how the teams, all of the teams, got to the World Cup. Qualification as a whole was conducted over 937 days.
Okay.
Uh,
That's nearly 3 years.
Almost 3 years, yeah. The first qualification tournament happened in September 2023, the first qualification matches.
Yeah.
And those were three matches on the same day in the South American Conference or Confederation. And then the last one was a Iraq versus Bolivia match. And you will, because you're a geography whiz, know that those two countries are from different continents,
They are.
which is not necessarily how most of the qualification happens. But basically, to qualify for the World Cup, there are six continental knockouts, or not knockout competition, but competitions that are used to determine which teams from that continent will qualify for the World Cup. So each continent or each confederation has an allocated number of berths or teams that they can send to the World Cup, and they can come up with their own competition to determine how those teams are selected. So for each continent, the way to qualify is different. Some of them are fairly simple. The African one is fairly simple. The European one is fairly simple. The
South America is fairly simple.
South America is the simplest.
Yeah.
And the Asian one is the most convoluted thing you've seen in your life. There are about 5 or 6 rounds
Yeah.
of this thing, and they come at group stages at
East and West division.
most of the way. So it's very it varies quite a bit. So we'll talk through a little bit about how those various qualification routes work. But come the end of it, depending on where you finish in your confederation tournament, there will be one or two more positions available for called the continental knockout.
Yeah.
So these are the lower ranked sides in these confederations will go into this, and there will only be one or two. I think there's 4 in total, and they play off. And that was the end of that was the Bolivia Iraq game. That's why you had two teams from different continents.
So this is kind of a way of assigning kind of half a place to two different confederations, or maybe a third of a place to 3 different.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of to leave it up to the merits of which continent deserves this extra spot the most, rather than assigning potentially a weaker confederation more spots than they deserve.
Yeah, exactly that. And with moving to our 32 to 48 teams, it was 16 new spots. So something worth considering or question worth asking is how those spots kind of divvied up.
Yeah.
UEFA got 3 additional spots, and that is the European Confederation.
Yeah.
They were probably most hard done by because they're the
yeah.
highest quality of football across the continent, or the teams missing out are probably the best teams that have missed out on the World Cup.
Certainly. Okay.
So they were only given an additional 3 spots. The African Confederation was given 4 spots, which is pretty significant. It went up from 5 to 9. So that's.
But I think the African teams are actually very strong.
They're pretty strong. But I mean that's how, for instance, in this year we have South Africa qualifying, and previously we've struggled to qualify for a World Cup. The last one we participated in was 2010 when we hosted it. Asia got another 3 spots. The interesting thing to mention about the Asian Confederation, even though it's Asia and even though there is an Oceanic Confederation, Australia compete in the Asian one, and that's just from a competitive perspective, I think.
So there are two reasons behind it. One is competitive, that they got more regular matches against high quality teams, and the second is that they actually felt it would give them a better chance of qualifying for the World Cup because there are guaranteed spots in Asia, whereas Oceania only gets a half spot. They used to, I remember they always used to play against the top qualified, or sorry, the sixth or seventh qualified South American team.
Okay, who will always or might beat them, might not beat them.
Exactly. So it was a little bit of a toss-up, whereas they felt they had more guarantee in Asia.
Yeah.
I think
now
New Zealand have got a guaranteed. Well,
Oceania has a guaranteed spot, but New Zealand will be at every World Cup. Yeah. So now it would actually probably be in Australia's better interest to, certainly from a World Cup qualification standpoint, to be in Oceania because they would are significantly better than New Zealand is. The South American sides only got an extra 2 spots, but that's pretty fitting because there's only 9 teams on the continent.
And they went from 4 to 5?
4 to 6.
Okay, and they still have that.
7th place team
was Bolivia.
Is Bolivia and goes goes into the continental playoff. So maybe they actually went from
4.5 to 6 and a third, I think.
Yeah.
Because it always used to be them against Oceania.
So that's a mistake. There's 10 teams on the continent, not 9. So I knew there was 3 teams that had missed out. Who didn't I mention? North America have gone from 3 to 6, but that's not a permanent allocation. The reason there's 6 teams in this World Cup is because 3 of them are hosts. And the result of that meant that the North American qualifying was a very watered down affair because of 3 North American teams, being Mexico, Canada, and the United States, are the 3 strongest teams in that confederation.
So that's quite remarkable because one of the surprising teams that missed out, not one of the big 3, I wouldn't say, but kind of just below that level, was a fairly significant North American team who've qualified quite a bit recently in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
I remember them being quite good in sort of 2014, 2010.
They certainly held their own.
Yeah, and 2018. I think they missed out in...
Did they not beat Germany? I think we discussed it. They upset somebody.
That is true, yeah.
That was in the Japan, Spain, Germany group.
Yeah.
Then they got a win.
Yeah.
They might have beaten Japan, because Japan... Oh, I'm not
Maybe.
sure.
Anyway.
They didn't get through, but they got 3 points.
Yeah.
So they beat somebody. So, yeah, they didn't have the best time of it. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the guys who have qualified for the first time.
Yep.
Something that might tickle your fancy just in terms of facts. There is a country that is, if you exclude teams from the United Kingdom, is the first country or first team to qualify for World Cup since 1938 that is not a sovereign nation. Do you know who that would be?
That is not a sovereign nation. It would be Curacao.
It is Curacao.
It would have been part of North American qualification.
Part of North American qualification.
And part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands.
Exactly right. And ironically, the last team to qualify as a non-sovereign nation was the Dutch East Indies, now Indonesia, in 1938. So the Dutch have a little bit of extra representation in this World Cup, which is quite nice. Uzbekistan have qualified for the World Cup for the first time.
Well,
with a little bit of a star, because obviously the Soviet Union had participated in the World Cup.
Yeah.
But Uzbekistan, basically, when when countries break apart, they get FIFA nominates a successor team. Well, it's not always one team. It could be 2 teams, but they nominate successor teams in the newly formed nations. And Russia would be the successor team of the Soviet Union. So Uzbekistan is considered as having qualified for the first time.
So I wonder what's happened with Yugoslavia. I don't expect you to have the answers.
I do.
Oh, do you? They go to Serbia.
They've won both of them.
And Croatia.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's one of the instances where they were both considered successor teams.
Okay. And then I remember in about 2002 or 2006 World Cup, Yugoslavia hadn't kind of fully broken up yet. Serbia and Montenegro were still together, and they played as Serbia and Montenegro. And I imagine that's just gone to Serbia. But
I would think so. I don't know that one off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's Uzbekistan. The third team, so there's four that qualified for the
Yep.
first time, is the team that we drew our best hope really
Cabo Verde.
in our local pubs World Cup draw is Cape Verde, Couple Verde, as we call them. They're currently ranked 69th in the world, worth mentioning.
Nice.
And I would say the kind of the standout then for them in terms of qualifying was that they qualified ahead of out of the African pool ahead of Cameroon,
Yeah.
which is a pretty prestigious African nation, or certainly they put themselves on the bigger stages, far more than what you'd expect from Cabo Verde.
And there's an Irish connection as well with Cabo Verde.
There is?
Centre back, I think he might be the captain.
I think so.
Nico Lopez plays for Shamrock Rovers, and I think he was born in Ireland.
Yeah.
He's played for Shamrock Rovers for 10, 12 years.
Yeah. I don't know, did it pop up in on your algorithms, this idea of the value of having one of your players at the World Cup?
No, I haven't, but I know that FIFA pays out I think like a set fee.
I think there's like a $360 million fund or something somewhere in that region that gets paid out to clubs for if they have players participating in the World Cup, and it's a
flat fee.
It's a flat fee. Doesn't matter if you're Lionel Messi or
Pico Lopez.
And interestingly, I think Shamrock Rovers are going to get about 150,000 euros or dollars, whatever it might be, for winning the League of Ireland. You only get 125,000 euros.
Okay.
So if you have, this thing that I was reading said that there's an interesting kind of not predicament, but strategy that you might start recruiting or signing players from these smaller nations.
Well, particularly dual national, I would imagine, because it's able to get work permits for players.
But I mean, for picking one player, or you maybe two or three in your squad, and they all go to the World Cup, that's the same as in terms of prize money is concerned.
Yeah.
As 3 years of winning a league, which is, I mean, this obviously only plays a part in smaller leagues, but League of Ireland is still a significant enough league. It's probably, I don't know, 12th to 15th biggest.
No, I think it's smaller than that.
Smaller than that.
I think it's potentially
is the
outside.
Bigger?
I think the PSL is bigger.
PSL bigger. Yeah. Okay.
I think in Europe it's outside of the top 30 leagues in Europe. I think like the Bulgarian Premier League would be bigger than the League of Ireland.
I take that back. In any case, it's big money regardless, but it's not moving the needle for Premier League clubs and whatnot. And our fourth team is Jordan. They qualified in the Asian Conference. You were saying that there's an East and West distinction in how they make their pools.
I might be wrong. I might be so certainly in the Asian Champions League there is.
Okay.
In kind of the group stages, because traveling is
Yes.
is chaotic for teams from Japan to go to, I don't know, Qatar.
Okay.
So I think in the initial stages they keep them separate. Maybe like even before you get the big guys added. So when you're playing, I don't know, Vietnam are playing Laos. They don't want Vietnam to have to go to play Jordan, for instance, or Syria, because the expenses involved. I mean, Asia is obviously a huge continent.
Yeah.
So I think in the very early stages they keep them separate, East and West, and then in the later they mix them.
I think for the World Cup qualifying, certainly at the most competitive part of it, when it gets narrowed down to 18 teams, so it's still a significant. It's the major part of qualifying. I don't think there is an East and West distinction.
Not later on, certainly.
But what was quite funny is Jordan qualified in this group, which I've kind of just deemed to be, it's basically a Middle Eastern pool.
Okay.
Plus South Korea.
Okay.
But there seems to be, it's just a really odd concentration of teams in the Middle East and then just South Korea out of nowhere.
I'm going to criticize you for calling either Iran or Iraq Middle Eastern if they're in the pool.
Well, I mean, it's in the there and thereabouts.
So
we had Jordan, we had Iraq, we had Oman, Kuwait, and Palestine.
Okay.
Which Gulf? Can we call them Gulf regions?
Yeah.
Gulf.
Well, Middle East and Gulf, I guess.
Yeah. Anyway. It was the sort of thing I saw South Korea and I said they must have asked themselves how they landed up in this pool. Okay, so
temporary base in somewhere around there.
Yeah, well, honestly, I was interested to see where Palestine played the games, and they basically hosted a game in each of those countries when they were playing against other countries, except South Korea. But they did strangely host a game in Indonesia.
Okay.
Against one of their opponents. So that was pretty interesting to have stumbled upon. In any case, let's have a look at the various continents qualifying routes. We're talking about Asia, so let's have a look there. I said that they have a very convoluted system. Basically, they start out with their the teams that are ranked 27th to 46th. So
Vietnam, Pakistan, India.
They have an initial home and away played knockout game, and then the winners of those. So that's 20 teams. The 10 winners of that advance to the second round, and they then join positions 1 to 26. This is in the world rankings to form a 36 team pool. Then from that, the group winners and the runners-up advance to the third round. So you're left with 12 teams. And then, 18 teams. And then you go to 3 pools of 6. So now we're on to our third round. 3 pools of 6. The top 2 teams in each of those will qualify for the World Cup. And then positions 3 and 4 go into our fourth round, which is another pool stage, 2 pools of 3. And the winners of those qualify for the World Cup.
So Iraq have really put their work to qualify for this World Cup.
Then the second place teams of those 2 go into a playoff to go into the intercontinental playoffs.
Okay.
So Iraq basically ran this whole route. They went through 5 rounds of Asian qualifying just to get the continental spot, and then managed to win against Bolivia and got themselves into the World Cup by that route. So Iraq had the longest route to the final, and I think it was 21 games they had to play, just to qualify for the World Cup, which is an extraordinary amount of matches. When you look at other teams like South Africa, who would have played 10,
and one of them was declared invalid.
Exactly.
We'll get to that.
Anyway, so the teams that are qualified from Asia are the teams you'll kind of expect. South Korea, Japan, Australia, probably the most notable of those. Iran is pretty good. They've had there've been some question marks about whether or not they're going to participate. I'm not sure that there's actually been clarity on that yet. Strangely, certainly at least according to AI, they said Uzbekistan, who's now qualified for the first time, are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
And it's almost been odd that they hadn't qualified previously. So that's pretty good. And then Qatar, I didn't mention them in their first time in playing the World Cup for the first time, because they, of course, hosted the last World Cup, but it is their first time ever qualifying for World Cup. Okay. So as opposed to being included in the World Cup because they were a host nation.
And they have invested a lot. So, I mean, I think, based on my perception, the strongest team that didn't qualify really from this was United Arab Emirates.
Yeah.
But they, again, quite recently good.
Yeah.
Similar to Qatar, a lot of investment in football in that area. And then historically, maybe the strongest team that hasn't qualified is actually North Korea.
Yeah.
I remember them playing in 2010 in South Africa. And then obviously we spoke about in the history of the World Cup, they played in 1966 in England and did very well. They beat Italy and went 2-0 up against Portugal in the quarterfinals quite early on.
They did fail to qualify quite spectacularly in the third round. So that when you narrow down to the 18 teams, they came last in their pool of 6 with only 1 win. So it's not like they were kind of chomping on the heels.
0 wins as well, I see. 3 draws.
Oh, so it was 3 draws. Wow. Yeah. Okay. It's amazing. Kim Jong obviously didn't score his 10 goals a game.
No, well,
if
you believe Western media sources.
That's very true. He was obviously too busy out on the golf course, scoring 17 hole-in-ones in the round.
Yeah. Bloody Leppard for the 18th. Anyway, should we move on to
Africa? Next, we got Africa. If we're having a look at Africa, much simpler qualifying tournament. Yep. We take the 54, I think, nations from Africa, split them into 9 pools of 6, and it was just as easy. You win your group, you're in the World Cup, and then the top 4 second-place teams would go into their own little playoff to determine who represented Africa in the intercontinental playoffs. So I mentioned that Cape Verde had beaten out Cameroon in their group, which was probably one that went a little bit against the grain. But then we had Egypt winning their group, which they were expected to do. Senegal, again, winning a group that they expected to. South African group in Group C. South Africa had it locked up. It was looking like Australia in the park. We'd actually performed really well in these group stages. But then it turned out that we had fielded in an eligible player in a match which we actually won 3-0.
Yeah. It was against Lesotho. We would have won it without.
We would have won it without him for sure. South Africa then kind of made, as an act of penance, did not play that player in the next game in order to almost self-penalize themselves.
And that was against our biggest competitor in the group, Benin, because Nigeria were not really competitive at that point.
At that point, exactly right. So we penalized ourselves by leaving him out of the squad for that match, and then it was eventually determined that regardless of our own actions that we had taken, we were in fact going to be penalized. So the 3-0 win against Lesotho was overturned, and a standard 3-0 loss for it's the same score you get as in a forfeit or if you just don't attend a match. So we were given it, and that brought the group into not dispute, but into competition once again. And we narrowly beat Nigeria and by a single point.
Yep.
Finished on 18 points, but it would have been more comfortable. We would have been on 21 points out of 10 games. That's pretty good going. Morocco qualified out of their group. Ivory Coast, Algeria, Tunisia, Ghana are the teams that have all gone through there. I don't think any two major teams that really missed out.
There was something quite controversial in African qualifiers, though, is because Eritrea pulled out.
Yes.
Their group only played 8 fixtures each.
Yeah.
And so they couldn't. Their second place team couldn't really be fairly adjudged against other teams. So what CAF, the Confederation of African Football, did is they disregarded results against the bottom place team in each group.
Yeah.
And that meant that the second place kind of log
changed
quite significantly.
Yeah.
And so for instance, Nigeria were out of the top 4 and then became part of the top 4.
Yeah, because if you had suffered a
shock defeat,
a shock defeat against the worst team in the group,
it actually was
beneficial for you because
or shock draw, which I think Nigeria had.
Right. But that's kind of a little bit on the nose because if you've lost to that team, you've had a bad qualifying, or you've drawn with them. That's a game you should have won. But I guess to me, there's not really a more even way of.
Well, perhaps they could have just said that the team who played Eritrea got walkover victories. Everyone who played Eritrea got walkover wins.
Oh, I see. In the group.
Yeah.
Just to determine who finished second.
Exactly.
Right, but then they still did rank teams on goal difference and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
if you give them a 3-0 win, 2 3-0 wins at that, is pretty generous. In any case, we had Nigeria, Gabon, Cameroon, and the DR Congo, Dr. Congo, going through to our
playoff, basically.
Playoff to see who gets into the intercontinental playoffs. Nigeria won their game, Dr. Congo won theirs, and then Dr. Congo beat Nigeria on penalties. Ooh. Nigeria are the big misses out from Africa, I would say. That is a team that you would really expect to be in a World Cup, and they're perpetually in the African football conversation. You're always expecting something out of an AFCON when it comes about,
and probably the African team with the most kind of well-known players in the Premier League.
Yeah, it's true.
Specifically with Iwobi, Iheanacho, Osimhen, not Premier League player, obviously, but well-known European. Victor Boniface, again, German-based player, or he was for a while. Their whole team's pretty well known, I think, to European audiences.
Yeah. So they will be ruining the missed opportunity, especially given that our number of slots increased from 6, 5 or 6 to 9. I don't know what I said.
I think 5 to 9.
5 to 9.
It's just their misfortune to be paired with South Africa in the group.
I know, we're too dominant. Well, I mean, like you say, it looked like for a while they weren't even going to finish second in that group. And if not for that rebalancing act that happened, they wouldn't have even been in the top 4 to have a second shot at getting through here. Next up, let's look at North America.
Good.
Like I mentioned earlier, the 3 strongest teams in the Confederation didn't participate in qualifying. I imagine they had their own kind of games going on.
I think they would have,
They surely just weren't playing, not playing football at this time. But they were probably playing amongst themselves. In any case, we had 3 groups of 4, and it's pretty much. Oh my word, I'm blanking. What's the islands all around there called?
Caribbean.
The Caribbean. basically a Caribbean shootout here, and Central African.
Central American.
Sorry, Central American, of course. So we had Panama topping their group, Curacao topping their group to go through, and then Haiti topping their group, which is pretty cool. Costa Rica were in Haiti's group, and yeah,
Jamaica were in Curaçao's group as well. I would have
Yeah.
expected them to go through.
they would have been favored to go through there. Jamaica and Suriname finished second in their groups to go into a playoff as well.
Jamaica, it should be said, have a lot of kind of English players of Jamaican heritage that were playing for them. So Mikel Antonio, obviously he had the bad car accident, so he
Yeah.
didn't play in the later stages. But Isaac Hayden was a centre defensive mid, played for kind of like championship, maybe low-level Premiership teams as well. He's in the team. There was Leon Bailey played for them for a while, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
I think he had a bit of a falling out with the Confederation though. Ethan Pinnock from Brentford, Mason Holgate used to play for Everton. So quite a lot of British players with
with the Jamaican heritage.
Bobby Decordova-Reid from Fulham.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
In any case, it wasn't the Englishmen weren't enough to get them through. So I said Jamaica and Suriname went through to intercontinental playoffs. They both fell by the wayside in that journey. Jamaica won their first game, but they ended up losing out to Dr. Congo. And Suriname lost in the semi-final of the intercontinental playoff. So they were unfortunately not progressing. So we only had the 3 teams. So we could have had a 4th team representing that confederation. Then on the South American side of things, as I mentioned earlier, 10 teams in the confederation, of which 6 automatically qualify. This is the simplest qualifying format of all.
Just a league. Home and away.
Pool of 10 teams. You play once home, you play once away, and most points wins. It was pretty clear cut. Argentina were a step above the rest, taking 38 points from their 18 games. And then from 2nd to 6th place was separated by only 1 point. Which is extraordinary. So we ended up having Ecuador coming 2nd in the group, then Colombia, Uruguay, Brazil only finishing 5th in their qualifying. But I mean, all that matters is that you get there. But traditionally, that would have missed out on the World Cup.
Well, it would have been in the...
You would have had to go to... Yeah, you would have played...
Against New Zealand.
Against New Zealand.
You probably would have won.
You probably would have got there. But you wouldn't have automatically qualified for the World Cup. And then we have Paraguay taking the 6th automatic qualification spot. Bolivia, as I mentioned, went on to the intercontinental playoffs and then lost to Iraq in the final game in that journey. The teams missing out were Venezuela, Peru, and Chile. And to our video audience, you'll see Joe wearing a t-shirt that says Federación de Fútbol de Chile. Chile.
Yeah.
So you must be pretty gutted about all this.
I'm quite saddened. It was a bit of a golden age of Chilean football in the kind of early 2010s. So they won the Copa America twice. Very really strong showing in the 2010 World Cup in South Africa.
Yeah.
Alexis Sanchez, Arturo Vidal.
Such a good team.
Yeah, those are the standout players. Claudio Bravo.
Yeah. All we need is Claudio Bravo. Yeah, so they did quite poorly. They came
awesome.
Yeah. So they didn't even have a sniff at the end of it. Venezuela were in contention with Bolivia to get into those playoffs, but didn't quite get themselves across the line in the end.
I think something to be said quite quickly on Bolivia is they play their home matches at I think 4,000 meters altitude.
Okay.
Which is really challenging for away teams. So I often see videos of the away teams taking oxygen masks once they're off the pitch. Really? So it's a really, really strong home advantage for them.
I wonder of their 20 points, how many of them were won at home?
We can do some maths here. So 3, 4, 7, 8, 11, 14, 17 of their 20.
17 of their 20 points. So they managed to pick up 3 away. That's a pretty big dispersion between your home and your away performance. So moral of the story, play football on top of mountains.
Yes. Huh. Where your guys are used to it.
But it's interesting because I wonder how many of their players would actually be playing in Bolivia and would not have become acclimatized to wherever they're actually spending their lives.
That's fair.
You might, sure you grew up there and whatnot, and maybe your red blood cell count is different.
I mean, you think Nepal would be qualifying for World Cups if this was the case as well.
True. Yeah. But in South Africa's case, maybe we wouldn't have beaten Lesotho. Oh, we did beat them, but
It was usually not that high.
Not
Like
that high.
it's got the highest, lowest point in the world. It's the only country with exclusively over 1,000 meters in altitude.
but it's
But
the lowest country. Oh, I see. I see. The whole of it is above 1,000 meters, and
Yeah.
no other country is
Yeah.
entirely above 1,000 meters.
Yeah.
Okay.
but I don't think it's that much higher than, say, Johannesburg at 1,600.
Okay. Let's charge on. We had OFC.
Yep.
OFC, Oceania.
Michelle?
The big takeaway for them was being granted their first ever guaranteed spot at a World Cup. And like you say, that will go to New Zealand.
Yeah.
Um,
Most years. Almost every year.
yeah, most years.
Or they
indeed.
beat New Caledonia 10-0 in the final or something.
Yeah. So this was, New Zealand kind of walked it. They landed up. They have a group stage, and then the two top teams from those group stages go into a semi-finals and a final to determine who plays in the World Cup. They won their semi-final against Fiji 7-0,
Okay.
and then beat New Caledonia in the final 3-0. So
it was closer than I expected.
So to be 10-0 up in your semis and your final to qualify for the World Cup is pretty dominant.
And it was all hosted in New Zealand, seemingly, now that I look at it.
The playoffs were.
Yeah.
Wellington, and Auckland were the hosts for that. So New Zealand dominant. We'll see what they do. Their big name, certainly on the Premier League front, is Chris Wood.
Yeah.
If Chris Wood would, the question is, would Chris Wood?
If Chris Wood could, then Chris Wood would.
But would Chris Wood if he could?
Yes.
He would.
No doubt.
No doubt. I've confused myself more than anyone there. Chris Wood, Nottingham Forest striker.
Yep. He's been injured for most of the season.
Yeah. He's the big man to look out for them. And then let's finishing up a little bit with the most competitive. UEFA, the European qualification. They had 16 spots to qualify.
Arguably not enough. Based on the teams we've listed.
Sorry, it was 16 that they've gone up from 13 to 16. Okay. So again, they split themselves very neatly into a bunch of different pools. Some of them with 5, some of them with 4.
I think 12
teams.
pools.
12 pools. It depends what letter L is.
Yeah.
In the alphabet. But 12 pools, mostly of between 4 and 5 teams in a pool. And if you won your group, you were guaranteed to go through. And if you came second in your group, you were guaranteed to go into a playoff for designated World Cup spots. So they didn't go to intercontinental thing, but they had an additional 4 World Cup guaranteed spots that you could win through the playoff. So there being 12 teams in the 12.
So 12 pools, the top team from each went through, so 12 went through.
Yes.
Second places all went through to a playoff where 16 teams competed for 4 extra spots. Yes. And those 4 extra spots were taken from the Nations League.
From the Nations League winners.
Yeah.
And the Nations League is a separate group stage and playoff competition that UEFA hosts in alternate, kind of in and around.
In non-World Cup and non-Euros.
Euros. It's basically
odd numbered years.
To do away with these endless stupid friendlies that they used to play where you'd have teams winning 8-0 and really counted for nothing. So that gives value to the Nations League, knowing that if you won your pool, you could go on to won your pool or your
There's your pool. Yeah.
Your pool. If you won your pool in the Nations League, you could go on to potentially qualify for the World Cup through that route. So in this instance, we had a very strange situation where Sweden, who did not win a single game in qualifying for the World Cup, managed to get into the playoffs because they had won their Nations League group, and they ended up progressing, winning their semi-final and their final, and then qualifying for the World Cup despite not winning a game in the group stages, which is pretty interesting. The teams from Europe that there's so many, I'm not going to name them all, but maybe the guys who missed out, Hungary, the Mighty Muglias, like you told us about in the history of the World Cup, they missed out.
They lost out to Ireland in the pool stages, and Portugal, obviously. So Portugal qualified directly, and then Ireland put them to second place.
True. Iceland, who are not a big nation at all. In fact, before Curacao qualified, they were the smallest nation to have competed at a World Cup. Made famous for their thunderclap, so we won't unfortunately be having any of that this year. Israel playing in Europe.
Famous European team.
They missed out. And who else are we missing here? Serbia, good side maybe, that missed out.
Ukraine
came second in their pool.
And
so they progressed to the playoffs. So of teams that kind of progressed to the playoffs, we had Denmark and Czech Republic. Czech Republic ended up beating Denmark in the final of that, so they missed out. Ericsson, obviously, he's retired now, I think. Is he still playing?
No, I think he's still playing.
But unfortunately, he won't have an opportunity to have another heart attack on the field.
Well, fortunately.
Czech Republic had knocked out Ireland. Turkey managed to try. Turkey, a pretty good side.
They're a good side. And it's only the second World Cup they've qualified for in the last 80 years, I think. 70 something maybe.
But I mean, pretty highly ranked
acclaimed
on the world rankings.
And,
I think
and
they're
good
like
players,
around 30th in the world, so you would expect them to be in the 48-team World
and
Cup.
a strong national league as well.
But they have to kind of go out their way to qualify.
Poland, I'd say one of the bigger ones.
Poland, Lewandowski, not there.
Matty Cash.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
They lost out to Sweden in the final of that. But undoubtedly the biggest upset in World Cup qualifying this year was once again Italy not making it to the World Cup, despite being ranked 12th in the world.
Fratelli d'Italia.
And they haven't played in a World Cup since 2014.
The last World Cup match they played was the game that Luis Suarez bit Giorgio Chiellini.
Oh my
in
goodness.
2014. And the last World Cup knockout match they played was the 2006 final.
I was going to say, with the Zidane headbutt.
So they failed to make it out of the group stages in 2014 and 2010, and then didn't qualify in 2018, 2022, and now 2026. So they're going to be kind of 30-year-old Italians at the next World Cup who basically don't remember their country playing in the World Cup knockout.
It is utterly bizarre. But that's Italian football. They run hot and they run very cold. I saw something the other day, I'm not sure how serious it was, that Pep Guardiola, when he leaves City, is wanting to go into international management.
I think it's believable.
And then somebody had transposed his face onto an Italian jersey.
I saw him saying
a cool project.
I did see him saying that he would be interested in the English job.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
but if England do well, I imagine there'll be clamour for Tuchel to remain.
Yeah, and I mean Italy, they won their semi-final in the playoffs for one of the 4 spots available, and they ended up losing on penalties to Bosnia and Herzegovina. And I don't want to speak badly about a nation, but you shouldn't be losing as Italy to Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Well, so 2 things to mention on that. The one is
Bosnia and Herzegovina.
The one is that apparently, so Bosnia beat Wales in the semi-finals of this playoff, and the Italian players were seen on camera celebrating that fact.
And because so
they thought
Bosnia were more beatable than Wales,
and that playing away in Bosnia, I guess, would be easier than playing away in Wales. And another point to mention is, I think Italy were the first team to ever play an independent Bosnia and Herzegovina team in whatever it was, maybe 1994, 1995-ish, after obviously the Balkan Wars. So actually the Bosnian people hold Italy in quite a special place in their heart, the Italian football team at least. Kind of in the same way, I'm not sure if you know this fact, but India were the first team to play a test match against South Africa after readmission in cricket.
Okay.
And so Southern cricket in India, I still feel have quite a strong kind of bond.
Cool. That's about all we have time for. We'll leave it there.
Yep. Thank you, Wes.
That's qualifying. Enjoy the real tournament. Until next time. Cheers.
Cheers. Goodbye.